Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez here. I'm going to talk about something I just read. I have been reading basically most of the afternoon. Again, one of these situations where a user using a color monkey from X-Rite has created a few profiles for certain papers and is still getting what he describes as a magenta cast in areas of shadow and areas of like deep blues. I think he's referring to blue jean color. And I'm just going to quickly read. This is going to be kind of off the cuff. So forgive me for the lack of planning. I'm going to go through all of these topics as well as I can, but you should find this quite interesting. And finally, the digital dog. He explained it better than I could possibly explain it. We'll get to that, and you should actually benefit from his explanation. And go to his channel, The Digital Dog. Just Google that, and you will land at a treasure trove of really well produced. They kind of look like PowerPoint presentations, but they're really videos. But the guy is a total expert in color, in basically color engineering, which I am not. I am lacking in that regard. So I often refer to him for information. So here we go. The poster stated, I've had an X-Rite Color Monkey photo since November 2016. I've been having an issue with the profiles. There's quite a bit of magenta tinge in the shadows. A dark blue t-shirt or anything black would have a magenta cast on it. I have profiled 3 types of paper and they all show the same magenta cast in the shadows. I've even optimized a second profile from the first profile. Okay, what he's talking about is the Color Monkey photo software allows you to optimize a profile that you have created with it. And usually what people will do, and that is a process that I have demonstrated in previous videos, they will use an image that's given them trouble. And they will actually load that image. The process will ask you to load an image. And usually it will be one that gives you trouble, that is having trouble being reproduced correctly like you see it on the screen. And then you go through the process of creating some patches, you scan them, and then that secondary profile, you should save it as a different name. And that's the one that you will use to print that particular trouble image. It's not for you to be printing other images, okay? It's only for that particular image. So he did that and still no joy. Since I'm quite new, I have to ask the question, is there a hardware issue with my X-Rite Color Monkey photo? Otherwise, what else can I do about the magenta cast? I'm so close to printing heaven with the Color Monkey photo. I previously profiled my papers with PrintFix Pro. I don't even know what that is. And that didn't give me any magenta cast in the shadows. Well, maybe, I don't know. You can argue with success. That's what I always say. Okay, so, oh boy, there must be 50 replies. And unfortunately, he did not kind of, come back to answer a lot of the questions that the more experienced repliers or posters were asking of this guy. But one of the most interesting ones was from my good buddy, and we'll just call him Bob. Let me see if I can locate this. Yeah. So Bob says, because on a previous reply, the person got very technical, using a lot of jargon that we, think that the original poster probably would not understand. And some of it went right over my head anyway. The OP just may not be that well versed in printing and color management. I always say print a reference test image with both the printer managing colors and with the application managing colors using the OEM printer ICC profile. Isn't that what I always say? Certify your printer first. Do not try to certify your printer with an unknown image, and everything that's yours is an unknown image, okay? You need to download the images that I have provided a link for. You have to search for that. I will post it again if you lost it. And use one of those images. Open it up. Don't worry about what it looks like on the monitor. Regardless, you print it, letting the printer driver control color, choosing your paper type, quality, and of course size. In most cases, you will be printing a letter size or A4 size print. Then you go and you print one, telling the driver to not control color. In other words, you're going to turn color matching off or color management off, depending whether it's a Canon or an Epson printer. And then you're going to go to your Photoshop, your Lightroom, your Q image, whatever you're using, and tell it to control color. And then you're going to pick the ICC profile that matches that paper that you are using. Hopefully, it will be either a Canon paper for the Canon printer or an Epson paper for your Epson printer. And those two prints should pretty much match. And they should be correctly rendered. Not too light, not too dark. These images contain collages of multiple images. And what's really interesting about these is that most of them, the original Kodak image that was actually out for ages, contain colors that were in gamut. So it was a very easy image to print correctly for a printer of any type to print correctly. So you go ahead and you do that, both with the driver controlling color and with the application controlling color. But remember, not both. You don't want to do that. And then you compare them. You need to view them under the correct illumination, the correct temperature. There's information about that. I have a special bulb, about 5,500, I believe, and to me that gives me the correct temperature for indoor viewing conditions. Who the heck views an image outside of the house, right? A print, I should say, outside of the house. No one does. So your prints are going to be hanging on your wall, so you want to be able to duplicate your light source that you're going to examine the print with to the correct temperature that most households will have. Remember, fluorescent light tubes, they tend to go toward green. You don't want to use LED type banks of light. You don't want to use any kind of light that is some other spectral zone as far as the Kelvin temperature. So he goes on then to say, I always say print a reference image, blah, 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 blah. And then if it prints without a color cast, then print with your ColorMonkey generated ICC profile. So you establish first that without that profile you generated, you can indeed print a correct rendition of that standard image using the driver or using your application with an OEM profile for that particular paper. Now, if that comes out, works out perfectly, now you're going to print the same image using the ICC profile you created, hopefully for the same paper. You got to keep everything the same. That will determine this. If the ICC profile you created has a color cast, you now know where to look. Also, always start with a correct nozzle check, which the OP states he has. Wow. Okay, so there. It's very simple to, eliminate the unknown. You first have to establish that the printer can indeed produce a correct rendition of one of those standard prints. Once you do that, then you know the printer is fine. Whether it prints through the driver or whether it prints through an ICC profile from, say, Photoshop or Lightroom. I'm going to hammer that as much as I can. Get this through your head. You need to verify that your printer can produce the correct print. Forget about the monitor. Just open it and send it to print, okay? And then look at it under the correct illumination. Digital Dog explains all of that in his video, Why My Prints Are Too Dark. Take a look at that. It will be quite an eye-opener for you. It was for me. So now you have a custom ICC profile you created with your color monkey. So now you want to determine whether that will also produce the same result, say for instance, of the OEM profile. And that's what will tell you if the color cast that you are seeing, especially this guy, was actually introduced by the profile that he created, or is it something to do with the printer? Okay, so let's go on. And this is going to be really, really interesting. So, of course, when a discussion of such subject matter begins, you can bet your butt that Digital Dog will jump in. Okay? So people started talking about metamerism and misusing the term. And basically what it is a color of ink of a specific spectral quality, whatever you want to call it, will look a different color under different lighting illuminations. And, it's not going to be just subtle. It's going to be quite a dramatic change. So here's what the Digital Dog himself described. Let me see if I can locate this. Because he asked the man if he saw that problem under different lighting conditions. Still, all we heard was crickets. No response from the guy, the original poster. All right, let me see if I can find this here. Okay, so here is the explanation. And let me enlarge that so my bad eyes can read it. Get ready for some technical stuff here. Metamerism is simple. Two samples with different spectra compared to each other with a given set of viewing conditions produce a match. Metamerism only applies to two color patches when they are compared. It is not correct to refer to one color from a given ink or paper and say that it suffers from metamerism. What he's saying is that two different colors, meaning having different spectra, are viewed under a condition. They appear the same. And of course, they should not appear the same. It is not correct to refer to one color from a given ink or paper and say that it suffers from metamerism. A metameric pair of color patches means that they appear to match under a given illuminant. However, they may not appear to match under another illuminant. Metamers, and then in brackets metameric stimuli, by definition are two different spectrums that appear to be the same color. And then he has an underline. If they don't look the same color, they are not metamers. Whew. I hope you guys understand some of this. So, if you are viewing a print with lots of colors and within different viewing conditions and there is a mismatch, this could be called a metameric mismatch or metameric failure. And that term I've heard a lot, but it is not metamerism. One sample, the print compared to itself in different viewing conditions, the proper term would be when they appear to match is color constancy, and when they don't is color inconstancy. Wow. The lack of a defined term for metamerism in this problem, metameric failure, is the best so far because it is unambiguous. Okay, what all this long-haired stuff means is that those magenta casts in those shadows could be caused by that. And later on, the poster does state, and he blames supposedly himself for lousy post-processing, which may or may not be the case, that when he finally left his home and took the prints outside under the sunlight, direct sunlight, the magenta cast was gone. A different illuminant, right? Just what Digital Dog said. So that magenta cast does not always appear in the same shadows, same density shadows. It appears in different, slightly different colors that happen to be dark. And so All of a sudden, he went outside and viewed his print under sunlight, and there was no more magenta cast. Wow. So then he goes back inside under his regular viewing light or whatever he's using, and there's a magenta cast. Holy cow. So then later on, he goes and says that he found a way to post-process the shadows to remove that so that they look okay under his conditions. Well, that's kind of half-assed backwards way of doing things, but if it solved this problem, then, more power to him. I used to have the opposite problem where they look great under my household illuminant, and then when I went outside, they looked off. Okay, there was a huge metameric failure, in other words. Not metamerism, metameric failure. So that means that a given color looks differently, drastically different under different lighting conditions. And it would be just an isolated color or spectra that would actually react different. And what causes that? Optical brightening agents in your papers. That is one of the major causes. So if you want to create amazing, high quality, fine art prints, start spending some money and buy some non-OBA papers. This will be your rag type papers, your burrito papers, anything that basically costs a lot of money will be the type of paper that you should be using. And it will actually provide you with a more consistent viewing experience. In other words, where when you go from one lighting situation to another, you will not see a drastically different color. You have to remember, look at what a gallery does. When they hang up a set of paintings, prints, drawings, whatever, they are under control lighting. They have special bulbs. They have a special intensity. And so everything is regulated. We at home, we really don't do that. We just hang a picture on the wall. I just put those with tape on the wall there. And I've been looking at them for almost a year and a half now. And they are perfect. They have not faded at all. But, this may not be the most ideal condition for me to be viewing images. You have to really consider that. And that's another one of those commitment things that you have to consider when you get into home printing, especially if you give away prints. And gosh, if you sell prints, boy, you're in trouble, because people will be viewing those prints under different lighting conditions and say you necessarily viewed them when you were evaluating them, and you may get some complaints from people. It just may happen. So you have to be very, very concerned about those type of possibilities. All right, that is it. Wow, I think I grew a couple of extra hairs just even thinking about this stuff. But I learn always something new from the digital dog. His name is Andrew Rodney, and he has a great website. Go ahead and check it out. And I tell you, he writes great articles all the time, and there's a bunch of new ones that are very, very interesting, and they apply to us home printers. All right, so that is it. Thank you so much. Please subscribe, share, and like. And I hope the next video is not so boring and a little bit more interesting, I guess. But to me, this is quite interesting as well. I hope it was for you guys. All right, thank you once again. Happy printing, everybody. Don't worry about metameric failure. Use good papers. So long.